Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from Haifa in northern Israel. I am Gaurav Sawant. Over the course of the next half hour, we get you all details of the top developments as this war between Israel and Hezbollah terror intensifies in southern Lebanon. But before that, there's breaking news that's coming in from Tamil Nadu. I quickly want to take you back to India, where there's a big development that's taken place. The Mysuru-Darbhanga Express has collided with the goods train near Thiruvallur is the information that we are getting as we speak. This is the latest bit of breaking information that we are getting. There is fire and smoke being reported from two bogies in the train, and these are the latest images that you see of that disaster that's taken place. No reports so far. At least there's no confirmation of loss of life or injuries at this stage, but then we are told that officials are rushing there. Senior officials of the railways are also rushing there. The information we've been able to gather so far is there have been no reported loss of life or injuries in the derailment after the train collided. So this is the Mysuru-Darbhanga Express at 8:50 p.m. It collided with a goods train, and I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Pramod Madhav, who joins us with the latest on the story. Pramod, what more can you tell us about this collision?
Gaurav, this collision has occurred at a location called as Kavarapete, which is almost 45 to 50 kilometers at the outskirts of Chennai. And after Kavarapete, you have Gumadipundi, and this is a spot where we've been given information that, while this particular train, which has left from Mysuru, was crossing this particular area, it actually sustained a kind of jerk through which the action turned during conversion through a loop. It actually lost and turned into went through another one, whereby it has actually collided with another freight train which was standing over there at almost 90 kilometers per hour. And initially it is being said that two AC coaches are under has caught fire. The railway authorities have reached the spot and they are trying to put down all the fires, and as we speak, work is in progress, Gaurav.
Okay. Stay with me. Let me also bring in Shilpa Nair, who joins us with more on this. Shilpa, what more do we know of the condition of the passengers on board the train? Any reports whatsoever? And is medical aid reaching them, or has it reached them yet?
The good news is the fact that, this accident took place just few meters away from the Kavarapete railway station. So for that reason, the minute this accident took place, the locals and the railway officials were present. All of them rushed for the help of the passengers who were stuck in that particular passenger train. And just a short while back, we spoke to the district collector, Prabhu Shankar, the Tiruvallur district collector. He told us that the rescue teams and the rescue operations are going on in full swing. They are currently assessing the situation, and like we've reported, there are 2 to 3 coaches that have caught fire. 3 to 4 coaches have derailed as well. But he said, as per the initial assessment, there's been no casualty as yet, but we can't be very sure of that. The officials are still at this site taking stock of the situation. The locals, the railway officials, and everyone are pressed into action as we speak. And from the visuals that we're getting from the ground, we can see passengers who were in that train running out of the train, taking all their belongings and running and escaping. Whether or no some of them got stuck in the debris, that is something that we, of course, have to wait and see. But for now, the district collector says there have been no casualties, but they are still assessing the situation. Now, the initial assessment of the railway is that at around 8:30 p.m., when the train left the station, there was a jerk that the train fell, and immediately the train was taken into a loop line where it collided with a goods train that was stationed there. So that is how the accident has taken place. We are, of course, awaiting more details from the railway officials as to what caused this accident exactly, how many passengers were on board this particular train, the Mysuru-Darbhanga Express, and all of that detail is still awaited. But as we speak, the rescue operations are underway. The locals, the medical
Shilpa and
teams,
Pramod, keep tracking that story. Absolutely. Keep tracking that story. I will come to you both for more. Now, for the moment, I now want to shift focus to the battle that's happening on ground here. This is Yom Kippur. It's the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, and this is a day of atonement. Now, if you hear all around me, there's total silence because this is a day that Israel comes to a virtual standstill. There's no public transport, no trains on the track, no buses on the road. Only emergency workers are out, and some people come out. The Jewish Arabs, they come out, but as far as the Jewish people of the country are concerned, they're either at home with family, praying and fasting, or at a synagogue. So this country comes to a virtual standstill for 25 hours during Shabbat and of course Yom Kippur that started at sundown.
Israel ramps up offensive. Strikes UN peacekeeper positions in Lebanon. India voices concern over attack on UN positions. Barrage of rockets fired at Haifa. Multi-front war escalates. Israel hints at Iran retaliation.
Close to midnight first. So there is an apprehension that there could be, this is the time that Israel's enemies could use this opportunity and strike, because remember, it's happened twice before. In 1973, what came to be known as the Yom Kippur War, that was the time that Egypt and Syria had together attacked Israel because people here were observing Yom Kippur, and initially Israel did suffer a setback, but then it mounted a multi-pronged offensive which resulted in Israel successfully pushing back both Syria almost all the way back to Damascus. The Israeli army had reached pretty close to that, and of course taking control of the Sinai Peninsula when it pushed the Egyptians back, which ultimately led to the Camp David agreement, but that's another story. But again, 50 years later, 2023, once again, it was around this time that Hamas terrorists had attacked Israel in October 2023. So October 2024, especially around Shabbat and Yom Kippur, the country is on a state of highest alert, because those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. But I want to take you straight to South Lebanon, where the United Nations has put out a complaint against the Israeli Defense Forces. The UN has come under attack for the second time. United Nations mission in South Lebanon. First, one of their watchtowers was targeted, and now there are reports of fresh attacks that have taken place. That's the big story that we're getting our viewers here on India Today. And I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Ashutosh Mishra, who joins us for more on the story. Ashutosh, what more can you tell us? The Israeli Defense Forces that are going after the Hezbollah in a big way suddenly seem to have been in the line of fire, or at least the United Nations says they're in the line of fire of the Israeli Merkavas. We've also been able to get a word from the Israeli Defense Forces on this, and they say that the Hezbollah had a stronghold very close to where the United Nations had their defenses, and that's the time when they were targeting the Hezbollah, the UN watchtower was in the direct line of fire. Of course, they said they'd already sent out a word, and this happened in a place called Nakura. Nakura is where the UN also has its headquarters. UNIFIL, this United Nations interim force in Lebanon, it's been there since 1978, one perhaps the oldest military mission of the United Nations. I've reported from Lebanon on the deployment of the UNIFIL. The Indian Army is one of the largest troop contributors, amongst the largest troop contributors to the UNIFIL mission. And this is where those forces came under attack. India, of course, has asked Israel to be extremely careful at a time like this, because UN is sacrosanct, should not be targeted. UN peacekeepers, they're there as peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. They should not be targeted. Israel, of course, has constantly been saying that the 1701 agreement also has to be implemented after 2006 conflict, which very clearly says that Hezbollah has to withdraw north of the Litani River, and they still haven't done so. I quickly want to bring in my colleague Ashutosh Mishra for more on this. Ashutosh, what more can you tell us about Israeli forces in South Lebanon and the complaint made by the United Nations?
Gaurav, in 48 hours, this was a second attack, and this time the UNILF says that Israeli tanks moved very close to the proximity of the UNILF campus, and this time this is another complaint that they have registered. But this time not only the UNILF but a lot of countries globally have expressed their concern, particularly the way the UNILF forces are being targeted about. So this is being a second attack in 48 hours, literally raises a concern. Also on this afternoon, 2 more soldiers from the United Nations for Peacekeeping Force were also injured. So they are also being treated. So that is also because of this conflict, the UNILF forces, which have been given mandate under the UN Resolution 1701 to protect the international border between Lebanon and Israel. And since now they are also in a dilemma how to respond to that, because there is no such UN decision as far as this new escalation and conflict between Lebanon and Israel is concerned. Now, since the battle is between Hezbollah and Israel, Hezbollah believes that now Israel is going to use the UNILF premises as a human shield kind of, and a similar escalation. Israel believes that now the UNILF is protecting somewhere Hezbollah. So amidst of all that, what it looks like, the force near the Litani River to the part of eastern and northern way, this entire range is being protected by the UNILF forces, and now they are coming into crossfire, indeed raising an eyebrow, and perhaps all the countries are now blaming Israeli, but their aggression is somewhere responsible for the UN forces getting attacked.
Keep tracking that story. I will come to you for more. UNIFIL has been in place for decades. Their mandate is very clear. And when it comes to UN forces, they have their charter very clear. Whether their deployment is under Article 6, where they're a peacekeeping force, or under Article 7, where they're a peace enforcement force. When I was reporting from Lebanon with the UNIFIL, it was very clear that they're a peacekeeping force. We'll track that story very, very closely. But let me now get you the day's top developments as Israeli forces targeted Lebanon very extensively, going after Hezbollah strongholds. Attacks have taken place from the sky, from the sea, and from ground. Ashutosh Mishra with this report.
Deadly Israeli air attacks on Lebanon's capital Beirut continue. A cloud of black smoke drifted up over the southern Beirut skyline after dawn on Friday. The Israeli army claims that the strike targeted Hezbollah rocket launchers. Thursday air raids in Beirut apparently targeted 2 residential buildings in separate neighborhoods simultaneously, killing at least 22 people while several were injured. It brought down one apartment building and wiped out the lower floors of the other. Rescue and recovery continues. This attack on residential buildings happened on the same day Israeli forces fired on United Nations peacekeepers in southern Lebanon and wounded 2 of them. The UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon, known as UNIFIL, said in a statement that its headquarters and positions have been repeatedly hit by Israeli forces.
Previously, I have highlighted that Hezbollah activities in the vicinity of UN positions held the potential to draw return fire. Now we face a similar situation with the Israel Defense Forces installing positions directly adjacent to UN positions, a development that we strongly protest.
UNIFIL has more than 10,000 peacekeepers from dozens of countries, including India, operating in the area. It was created to oversee the withdrawal of Israeli troops from southern Lebanon after Israel's 1978 invasion. The United Nations expanded its mission following the 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah, allowing peacekeepers to patrol a buffer zone set up along the border.
We are deeply concerned by the reported injuries incurred by UN peacekeepers and are wishing them a speedy recovery. As we work to gather additional information, we have also been clear to all parties, including Israel, that we expect them to respect the safety and security of UNIFIL personnel and premises and avoid incidents that expose them to risk or harm, as well as to liaise with UN authorities to ensure UNIFIL can operate freely and in accordance with its mandate.
La tenue de cette réunion.
The way forward is clear. First and foremost, we need an immediate and lasting ceasefire in Lebanon. This is the appeal that France and the United States launched 2 weeks ago and which a number of our partners have joined. It still stands, this appeal.
Plusieurs voix au Liban ont relayé cet appel.
United Nations peacekeepers are determined to remain at their post in southern Lebanon despite Israeli attacks.
We know that a few days ago the IDF asked us to move from certain positions along the blue line. This is a known fact, and we have over 29 positions along the blue line, like the Irish in Marun al-Ras. And we decided to stay. There was an agreement with all the troop contributing countries that it's important for the UN to be there, to fly the UN flag, and we continue to monitor the situation. We are there because the Security Council has asked us to be there. So we are staying until the situation becomes impossible for us to operate.
Hezbollah, on the other hand, is preparing for a long war of attrition in southern Lebanon. Since 30th September, with regular strikes, Israel has wiped out most of its top leadership. Hezbollah's command was disrupted for the first few days after Nasrallah's 27th September assassination. A new military command is now directing rocket fire and the ground conflict for Hezbollah.
Facing Israel, now Hezbollah has a dual strategy. One, they want to maintain bombing northern Israel, keeping the pressure on Israel. And this is a negotiating card, or one of the cards, one of the leverages that Hezbollah has over the Israeli side. And two, they want to push back and slow down the Israeli ground invasion to demonstrate that they are a potent force and they're viable, and also to give themselves time. You know, for them, they understand that the timing now is paramount. They understand that the U.S. elections is going to be on the 1st of November, and after that, the pressure might mount on the Israelis. It might not, but it might mount on the Israelis, and there will be more diplomatic effort on that front.
A plume of smoke could be seen rising above the skyline in southern Israel on Friday morning. As the war intensifies, Russian President Vladimir Putin held talks with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian on Friday in Turkmenistan. Pezeshkian last month committed his country to deeper ties with Russia to counter Western sanctions. The two countries say they are close to signing a strategic partnership agreement that further adds potent arsenal to this ongoing West Asia crisis.
But the big question is, has Israel bitten off more than it can chew, considering Israel is now combating adversaries and enemies on at least 7 fronts, if you don't count the enemy within that's constantly targeting Israel. Earlier today, I spoke to one of the young members of parliament, Ariel Kalner. He's a member of the Knesset here, member of parliament in Israel, and somebody who serves on the security and the foreign affairs committee of the Israeli parliament. And he's very clear, Israel is fighting for its survival. It's fighting against 7 adversaries, and he insists they will win against all. Listen in. This is an India Today exclusive. Iran targeted Israel with over 180 ballistic missiles. Now it's been over 10 days. Is there a delay in Israel's response? And if so, what's the reason for the delay?
Israel has the right to defend itself, and Israel will defend itself. I won't go into specifics here, but we will ensure the security of our people, and we will protect our people. I can ensure it. This is something I can say for sure.
The ground situation right now, you're facing a threat on multiple fronts. What can you tell me if we take it front by front? The latest front where we are, the Haifa port right behind you, and Hezbollah continues to try and fire rockets into the Haifa Bay. They're targeting various parts of northern Israel. How grim is the situation according to you?
More than a year, Israel has been attacked by radical Islamists from the south, from the north, from 7 directions. We're in a war. Our war is the war of the free world. It's not only our war, but it is a war for our existence, and we are going to win this war. We will achieve the total victory, and these barbarian attacks of Hezbollah, like Hamas, they shoot, they try to kill Israelis, innocent civilians. These barbarian attacks, this total evil.
Is there an apprehension that Israel is biting more than it can chew, fighting a war on multiple fronts? Because if you were to target Iran, the apprehension is Iran strike back. 181 missiles fired so far. They could fire, perhaps they say they have more than 3,000 ballistic missiles.
Israel knows how to defend itself, and Israel ready to defend itself, and the people in Israel are very strong. We have, and our army is also very strong.
What can you tell me about the criticism that's coming Israel's way, whether it's in Gaza where they say 42,000 civilians have been killed, or in Lebanon where they're saying in Beirut, the striking of Beirut is leading to a lot of civilian casualties. Hezbollah leadership is dying, but civilians are also dying, and Israel is targeting civilians. There is a criticism that Israel has also targeted the United Nations UNIFIL in Nakura in southern Lebanon.
We are sorry for any innocent casualties. In contrast to our enemies, we try to and we attack only the terrorists themselves, while they shoot on innocent civilians, try to kill innocent civilians, and in a war sometimes we are very sorely and unfortunately there are casualties of innocent people. We don't want to, it's not our goal. We didn't start this war. This is a war we are fighting because we were attacked unprovokedly by these radical Islamist organizations.
Sir, for joining me here on India Today, many thanks.
Thank you very much.
So Israel is on a state of highest alertness even as we speak, a state of operational alertness, especially given its history. 1973, during exactly the same time, Yom Kippur, when the country was fasting, when the country was in a way observing its most religious day, they were attacked both by Egypt and by Syria. So the Yom Kippur War of 1973 and 50 years later, exactly around the same time, the 7th of October, when Hamas terrorists attacked Israel. So in 2024, there are many lessons that have been learned from history, and that is why for the next 24 hours to 48 hours, there's a state of absolute heightened alertness, and we'll be tracking that story very, very closely. That is all I have for you on this special broadcast that comes to you from Haifa in northern Israel. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.